Let's go.
What a lovely day!
Andy, there's a whole world out there. Jump in.
Can you dig it?
Yeah.
You must always pay strict attention.
I was just completely enamored by it the entire time.
Dude, he did not have to go that hard.
I know, man. Isn't it wild?
The Jared Cast.
So we begin.
Thank you very much for joining us here on the Jared Cast. Yeah, man. My name is Jared A. With me is Jared L. Now, sadly, we will not be joined by Elvis Presely, but we will be talking about the movie Elvis, based on his life by Baz Luhrmann, starring Austin Butler and Tom Hanks. How you doing today, Jared, though, before we get started?
I am pretty good. Went to a late night showing last night, so it's fresh, but I'm a sleepy boy because it's a long movie. So late night showing means early morning release.
Yeah.
But I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here. This will be an interesting one because we both thought this movie was going to be shit when we heard about it and saw the trailer, and then it got good reviews, and so that's why we are doing this episode, because we wanted to see what the hype was about.
Yeah.
I'm excited. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to talk about this, actually, because I don't know if I told you this, but I was like obsessed with Elvis when I was in like middle school. Like he was my gateway into like older music and stuff like that, and so I just listened to everything from all the biggest artists in the 50s and 60s because of his music, and so I was very I was gonna watch it eventually. Like I wasn't planning on seeing it in theaters, and then when you suggested, I was like, oh, all right, we'll go. And my experience was very weird. And yeah, what was your, like, I don't know. How did you feel about how did you feel about Elvis going into the movie, like just as a musician, as an artist?
My first experience with Elvis was my grandma telling us a story of seeing him, where she caught his scarf that he threw into the crowd, and she fainted immediately, and somebody stole it from her, and then she missed the rest of the show. Yeah, and like growing up, we listened to him, but I was never really like a super fan, because like for country, I listened to different country artists. For like blues, I listened to different blues artists. So he was always kind of like the gray area that I would go to every now and then, but wasn't a diehard fan of. And then I heard about the not so great shit he's done over the years, and so it was kind of a love-hate, but not super strongly either way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, we have a very irrelevant top 5 because we
we do. You'd expect from doing a movie about Elvis that the top 5 selection would be easy. But we like to stay unpredictable on this show, so fuck you. We're going to do our top 5 favorite Beatles songs.
I felt extra bad about this because in the movie, like, the Beatles are like the Beatles
mentioned for like
they're mentioned in a context of like, oh my god, my career's over. Like,
yeah, which makes us even funnier. We're besides being Elvis fans of varying degrees, we're also both Beatles fans, and we thought it'd be funny. Is basically what this comes down to. So we each got our 5 favorite Beatles songs. This might be the top 5 where my list switched the most from like my initial first draft. It just kept changing for like 45 minutes straight. But it was a fun one to do. And I'm very excited to hear your list as well. So why don't you kick us off with your number 5?
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Um, yeah, even when I didn't really like the Beatles, I loved this song. I think the the simple vocals spoke to me. The kind of weird buildup of the drums and the cool guitar parts. It's "Here Comes the Sun." I think it's such a wholesome song. It's such a feel good song. Even if you've heard it like 200 times, it still kind of wakes you up and still kind of makes you feel like it's gonna be okay, you know. And it's an interesting song too because this came out at the end near the end of the Beatles' career, and so it was very interesting and very sad, uh, but still like somehow happy. And that's kind of the Beatles.
Yeah, that's their little pocket right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, a great pick. A great pick. My number 5 is a John Lennon joint, but most of the reason I love it is because of McCartney. I think it's one of, if not their most iconic songs, and it's got a bass line that just won't quit. It's come together.
Yeah.
A big Abbey Road track. You'll definitely see the era of Beatles I like most based off my picks here. And Abbey Road's probably their best album, and maybe my favorite. I love it. This song, it just goes hard, and that bass line literally makes the song like the most replayable song. For me, I could just listen to this shit on repeat and it'll literally never get old. So it's my number 5.
Definitely. Great pick for number 5. My number 4 is also a John joint. I'm mostly a George guy, but I also love John's writing. But I went with A Hard Day's Night. We reviewed this film and we talked a little bit about the song when we reviewed it on the podcast. I just think their chemistry is just really amazing on this song. You get to hear our you get to hear all our boys sing in the chorus, and it works really well. It sounds like the same guy 4 times, but it's not. It's like they sing with a remarkable just with remarkable chemistry, and everybody compliments everybody. It's also a fun rock song, fun pop song, and of the early Beatles era, I think it's my favorite song from that. As much as I love "Love Me Do," "Hard Day's Night," I had to choose it over that.
Yeah, it's a dope one. It's crazy how cohesive their harmonies are, even that early in their career.
Yeah,
you'll love to see it.
And the drums go pretty hard too. Ringo plays harder than most drummers back then.
Yeah, proud of that boy. Speaking of songs that go hard, I got another Abbey Road John Lennon song, but this one's kind of a hot take. I remember seeing lists back in the day, and a lot of them had this as their top 5 worst songs. But I've always loved it. Maybe it's because of its simplicity. It's really lyrically, it's not super dense. Musically, it's not super dense. But it's also kind of credited for maybe being the first metal song. Depending on how loosely you use that phrasing. I don't think it is, but it's "I Want You," parentheses, "She's So Heavy."
So good.
Yeah, it's just a jam, dude. It's got a real dark, sexy quality to it. The 3 hits on the drums after every line is fucking badass. The guitar works badass. And it's just cool to see minimalism Beatles done in a completely different sound from what they usually do. Not that by this time they didn't really have a usual sound anymore, but this one still stands out as unique for me, and I love it a lot. So that's my number 4.
So good. I wait in anticipation of that track when I play Abbey Road. It's so amazing. Um, my number three is maybe, yeah, it might be my most replayed Beatles song. Um, this is the sadly the only McCartney joint to make my list, but it's I think his best one, and it's Get Back. I think it's great. I think the nonsense lyrics are so much fun. I think the lyrics that aren't nonsense and actually like talk about going back to where you once belonged. Like I think those are fun as well and really uplifting, really uh, ironic, and really um, it's uh, I don't know, like just watch the Peter Jackson thing, you'll get it. Like, there's not much I can say that he didn't say with 8 hours of footage, but I this song is just so much. It's just a party to me. Okay, I remember what I was gonna say. I watched the music video for Where the Streets Had No Name, where they did the rooftop concert, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is so cool!" And my dad was like, "You think this is cool? Check this out. This was like decades before that." And I was like, "What?" And then I watched back before they were trying to restore this footage. They still had the Get Back rooftop performance on YouTube, and then years after that, I tried to find it, and I was like, I wonder where this footage is. I can't find it anywhere. And then it turns out they were Disney was taking it. Yeah, watching the rooftop performance of it was just really awesome.
Yeah, fucking iconic song. I love that song, man. It's a great pick. My number three is I think the only George Harrison song to make my list, despite being both of our like favorite or like second favorite Beatle. I think you, me, and Renato all had the same ranking.
Yeah.
If I remember right, go back and listen to his episode. But this one fluctuates between 1 and 3 for me, but it's always in there, and it's While My Guitar Gently Weeps.
Yeah.
Obviously, some of the best guitar work, if not the best guitar work of the Beatles. Being a Harrison joint, you kind of expect that. It's got one of their only features ever, with Clapton coming in for some guitar work as well. The lyrics are fucking fantastic. It has such a moody atmosphere that kind of builds and falls apart and just takes you on a real nice journey. It's just a fucking rad song, man. I love it a lot.
So good, so good. Did you ever see McCartney 1, 2, 3 yet, or 3, 2, 1? I don't remember.
No, because I haven't even seen Get Back yet.
Oh,
I
okay.
still haven't even. I'm a bad Beatles fan.
Dude, they like Rick Rubin shows him, or he talks about While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and Rick Rubin like isolates the different tracks and stuff, and Paul's like literally like, "Oh my god, I never noticed that before." Like he notices, he discovers new things in his
That was
own.
fucking tight.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, that. I'm so sad that song didn't make my list. Uh, I I would have had too many George songs if I kept it on my list. Because yeah, it's an amazing song, that one, and Strawberry Fields both narrowly missed my top five. But I even just adding to your point, like the most simple thing on that song is the bass, that dun 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 dun. But because you have that foundation, like everybody else can just go crazy, and it's just really cool. Um, um, my number two was previously mentioned. It was "Come Together." I think this is my favorite John song. Next to Strawberry Fields, I had to pick one or the other for my number two, and I just decided "Come Together" was a better vocal performance. Um, I think the like every single cover I've heard of this song is still like awesome, but it still doesn't like compare to like how much fun this opening track is. It's one of my favorite opening tracks to any album. um, any rock album at least. And yeah, it's really really good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, I like it too. It'd be in my top five.
Yeah.
What else to say? Um, my number two. We've done some White Album. We've done some Abbey Road. And now we're gonna get into their batshit crazy, or I don't know, part of their batshit crazy era with Revolver, and it's Eleanor Rigby.
Whoa.
Yeah, I fucking love Eleanor Rigby.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite Beatles lyrics, yeah, across the board. McCartney absolutely smashed it on this one. The kind of him just meditating on loneliness, and it's so kind of surreal and out there the whole time. And it's yeah, the weird baroque side of this song like worked for him too, and
Yeah.
it shouldn't, but it does. And I love that a lot. And it's just mostly for the lyrics. It's my number two, but the song as a whole just comes together in a real gorgeous way.
Yeah, man. No one was saved. Oof.
Nobody.
Oof. Ooh. Ouch. Ouch. That's the 60s right there, man. That's the
Yo.
60s. Yeah, Face in a Jar. So good. My number one is not nearly as wild and crazy, but I think it might be my favorite love song of all time.
Ooh.
I don't know though. I don't know. There's a lot of great ones out there, so it's certainly in the top 10 love songs I've ever heard. Um, and it is another George joint. It is Something, his first single with the Beatles. Um, it's just brilliant lyrics. I think one of their best. I think my favorite, my number one of them. I love Ringo's performance as well. I think the timing of the drums is so weird and off kilter, but it works because of how it lets you build into the chorus, and it's very melancholic in tone, but because of what he's saying and because of how he's feeling, like it's still it takes me right back to Here Comes the Sun, that feeling of like of a mix of sadness and joy. Like none of this can last forever, but it's still like I'm holding on to this real, like hard, concrete thing. Yeah, it's got to be Something.
Hell yeah. Yeah, fucking gorgeous song. The way the like almost deadpan delivery with like such saccharine lyrics always creates a cool atmosphere. Narrowly missed my list, so I'm glad it made yours because it definitely deserves that shine. My number one is one that's already been mentioned as well. I think it's the most fun Beatles song. Narrowly beating out Twist and Shout. But I think it's the most fun I have with the Beatles. It's got maybe my favorite guitar riff from the Beatles, and that's Get Back. I absolutely love this song, man. Even the backing vocals and like all the weird yells they do, like they're just like "Get back, Loretta!" Like it's just a fucking great time all around, man. And yeah, I since I was like 13 years old, I would just listen to this song on repeat, let alone more of the Beatles. So it's always been in my life, and it always will be, because it's just such a good fucking song.
Amazing. Yeah, definitely worth a number one spot.
Hell yeah. Let's go back to the artist at hand, I guess.
Oh man, sorry, Elvis.
Cheers. Yeah. Once again, the Beatles steal this spotlight. And who else is going to steal their spotlight but Ultra Maximal in this installment of Jared Reed's Poorly Written Reviews of Movies They're Watching because it's funny, it makes them laugh and stuff. All the reviews for this were either anti Tom Hanks or anti Baz Luhrmann. So it was fun to dig for a little bit of flavor, and I found it in the twos section. So this was a 2 out of 10, titled "Hunka Hunka Burnin' Whatever." He says -8 stars for Tom Hanks. Really? Again? With a little upside down question mark for extra space. We are done with him. Just retire and fix that mess of a kid you've unleashed on the world.
Oh my god.
Out here catching strays. I generally enjoy Baz movies. They're colorful, fun, and interesting to watch. Not this one. It's kind of boring. Maybe because the story's been done a dozen plus times and people just don't care about a drug-addicted, wife-abusing adulterer and sloppy parent from 70 years ago. This certainly seems to show in its ticket sales. Maybe it's because I never thought Elvis was that great. Annoying, plastic, manufactured, yes. A true talent and icon, debatable. A total skip it.
Damn, dude.
Yeah.
Insulting the king and Chet Hanks.
Yeah,
come on, man.
Both kings. I just love that Chet Hanks catches a stray out of nowhere, completely just unwarranted.
It's okay. Yeah, man, this is so mean. Yeah, I went into this movie with strong reservations, unlike our lovely internet reviewer here. I was the opposite. I was a huge fan of Elvis and not a huge fan of Baz Luhrmann, and so I was kind of reluctant to watch it. And I think I walked out of the film with a new appreciation for both. I think I know a lot of people love the flashy, gaudy, over the top style choices of Luhrmann, but it always felt too like literal for me, especially in The Great Gatsby, which is to me not a very literal book, but in that film, I think his style felt inauthentic. There was a lot of complex camera movement combined with shooting at a really high frame rate, and so I always get really dizzy and motion sick. And the same thing kind of happens in the first act of this film, and so I was very not into it at first. But as the second act carries along, and as I got more absorbed into Austin Butler and Tom Hanks' performances, I actually really enjoyed this movie. I think there's still a lot to that I still had my issues with it, but I think most of the things that I will be saying today are positive. So I'll give it a 7.4.
Yeah, I lean positive, but not as positive. I do agree. I think it's a great use of Baz's style. I think you need like kind of a flashy subject matter, like this or like Moulin Rouge felt. But yeah, I think Austin Butler kills it. He fucking smashed it out of the park. That's not a hot take. I think that's been kind of the universal review of this movie from what I've seen. And I think the focus should have been on him, honestly. I think Tom Hanks is a drag in this movie.
Oh, really?
I was not a fan of his performance or him being the center of the stage. I think that character even works if you tell it more from Elvis's perspective than his, because you don't buy into, or at least I didn't buy into why he trusted the guy so much, because we see the slimeballness from the get-go, and I don't know, there wasn't really, for an unreliable narrator, I wanted to like kind of buy in and believe him a little bit more. But besides that, I think the style wasn't that nausea-inducing. I actually liked the first act a lot, and then I think it kind of fell apart in subsequent acts further and further. But yeah, so kind of similar-ish thoughts on the movie, but for seemingly opposite reasons. But I think it's got some issues we'll discuss, but mostly with pacing and length. But overall, I think it was a positive experience. I think I left in appreciating Elvis more, feeling about the same as I did about Baz, because I was kind of 40-60 on him instead of 50-50. And this one fell into the 40 where I thought it was a positive experience. Still, I'll give it like a 6.3. I think it wasn't a movie that I'd recommend to everybody, but if you're a fan of Baz or a fan of Elvis, I could see you thoroughly enjoying this movie. I think there's a lot to like here, but I think there's enough to dislike as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like I was telling my friend who's like really like who loves everything Baz Luhrmann does, and I'm like, yeah, you're gonna cry for 2.5 hours. Go watch it.
Yeah.
Like, it's great. For you. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I do agree that I don't like Parker as a narrator. I think because of that, the message of the film gets muddled, right? Because we're not supposed to believe him. He's blaming us for Elvis's death. We know we're not supposed to believe him for blaming us for Elvis's death, but the movie still ends and still shows us, shows the audience fawning over Elvis and kind of trying to prove the Colonel right. And he's like the thing that killed him was love. Like no,
Tacky.
yeah, like I don't know, man. That was really it felt weird, especially after that really soulful like Unchained Melody recreation. I was like, what's going on, man? Like stop, like just stop. You had it, and you lost us. I like Tom Hanks when he's in the room with Austin Butler. I think the really complex like love that he has, if someone like that is even capable of love, I think that it's really interesting and twisted and annoying in the right way. Like it's something that like you want to hate this is a movie where you want to hate the villain that they give you. And it's kind of what I've been wanting out of Tom Hanks. I've been wanting to take more villainous roles. So even though this performance isn't perfect, even though the voice took like 3 minutes for me to get used to, even though the use of the narrator didn't really do it for me in the end, or the beginning or the very beginning, I think I think this is a step in the right direction. But I know you feel the opposite way about him. So what are your thoughts about Tom Hanks?
I like that he did take on a villainous role because he's always, I don't know, from what I've seen of his work, I think he's always kind of just been the lovable hero type or lovable protagonist type. So it was nice to see him kind of play a slime ball. And I agree, he did shine more in the scenes with Austin. But I think that was mostly due to Austin. I think he kind of fed off of his energy, which is weird for such a veteran actor playing counterpart to a guy from iCarly. I don't know, the voice I didn't hate because I don't know what he sounded like, but based off what I know about him and what about his story. It seemed like kind of a cartoony Baz Luhrmann version of it. So I could look past it, even if it was kind of obnoxious to listen to for a while. But
the accent. Oh, sorry. No, the accent is definitely not as thick, but but what he nails is like the so fat you can barely move your mouth talk.
Yeah, like kind of marbly.
Yeah. Sorry, continue.
No, you're good. But overall, I don't know. I think he didn't play it sneaky enough because it is kind of a sneaky character in terms of its relation to Elvis. Like he kind of, it felt like, oh, I'm gonna try to help you, but like mostly focus on myself. And you get this more so in the second act at times, but it just felt like too blatant and too like flamboyantly like almost super villainy type with the voiceover and with him being center stage. So I just wanted him to take a backseat to Elvis. I wanted to like at first buy into like, oh, he like is genuinely helping him and growing his fame, but there's some weird shadiness underneath that we don't quite get until later in the movie. But it was just like evil Carney, evil flamboyant manipulator, like right off the bat. And I think for the character, it didn't quite land, and it felt as if they were like, well, we have we have the big man himself, Tom Hanks, looking the biggest he's ever digged, and so they kind of just put it all on him instead of like the real lead. It felt, and so it was kind of just I just wanted to skip through the weird CGI casino parts. I wanted to skip through anytime it was a voiceover. I just wanted to get back to the meat and potatoes of what made the movie good for me.
Yeah, I also don't like the casinos very much. Those weird spinning movements and the bizarre cuts, and when he's like first going to the gospel revival tent, and they use pop songs and party scenes. It still feels like Baz Luhrmann trying so hard to be cool, and he's just not. At one point they play Doja Cat, and I'm like, I love Doja Cat, but why?
Yeah, like all the modern songs were good on their own, but every single one was so out of place. Like none of them like were necessary at all. Like just release the album that they made in like companionship and just cut it out of the movie.
Yeah, definitely. To your point about Tom Hanks, though, and his role as a villain, I think maybe the reason that there was that it's inconsistent is because I know I was listening to a bunch of interviews last night at the premiere and then at the after the fact that after the release of the film, and Baz was talking about working with Priscilla Presley, and she said and she was I don't know if she like how hard she fought for it, but she said like the reason why Parker was around for so long was because he really was like that charming, and he really brightened up the room that much, and they really loved him that much. And so I think there well, yeah, and we don't really see that in the movie, and also like if you're letting that aspect of the real person influence the fictional part, like there's going to be tension, there's going to be inconsistency, there's going to be it's not going to always gel. And I think you're right there. I think because of that the message of the film is a bit muddled because of the narration. I think overall the movie is still like it mostly addresses the tension between artistry and show business, and I think that that's kind of what the film gets right. I think that time and time again we see the thing that's maybe most authentic to Elvis, where Elvis and the people who love him want to pursue his artistry and want to share it with the world, and then Parker and the other people who see the dollar signs when they look at Elvis, they see a cash cow. And so I think that is what happened. I think even fans of Elvis at the time could see it. I think people around people who were friends with him, who were other musical artists, I think they could see it. And I really enjoyed that aspect of the film, even though it made me really sad and really and was the main thing that made me emotionally invested. I definitely was impressed with Baz Luhrmann's ability to capture the triumph of Elvis's artistry and the tragedy of his journey as a human being.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I think the movie did best as well. I think because it is the heartbreak of the Elvis story is him being like kind of taken advantage of and like pushed to the absolute limit to squeeze every single penny out of him for his entire career and entire life. And it is a tragedy, and I think they did a great job balancing that and the parts where Baz Luhrmann style kind of shines, where he is this energetic, just magnetic character, and they they did a good job kind of showing having you buy into what makes Elvis such a star power. They make you every little hip swivel in the movie. You're like, oh fuck, like he's killing it up there. But you see the evil underneath the entire time, and I do think they balance that super well. And that's why I kind of forgive the Colonel being the main character, because it's super nice to see like BB King be like, hey, this is you're losing like the art behind the artist, and it's turning into just merchandise sales, and you see like the warning signs from everybody else close to him except his father, who kind of just plays this cowardice character. I don't know anything about his real dad, but it kind of felt like he was just another puppet for the Colonel. And so I do think they got that right as well, and it made the more fun parts feel more triumphant, which I really appreciated.
Definitely. What are your notes on Austin Butler? I know you talked about him briefly. I know that's the kind of thing that everybody universally loves about the movie. Any notes on him?
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was absolutely fantastic. I don't think he didn't really like sound exactly like Elvis. Like it didn't feel like an exact Elvis impersonation the way like Freddie Mercury was trying to be portrayed in Bohemian Rhapsody, where they're like, do everything you can to be exactly Freddie Mercury. But
Yeah.
it felt like capture the magic of Elvis and like the star power and the charisma of Elvis and translate that on screen. And I think they did a great job of that. I think he transformed. I'm not crazy familiar with everything he's done because it hasn't been a lot up until now. Looking at
Yeah.
his filmography, it's like Zoe 101 and shit like that. And so it was nice to see like such a surprise, like huge film debut for him and have him knock it out of the park so damn hard.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. He was Tex in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I liked him there, but he didn't really get much screen time. So when they showed pictures of him and showed screenshots of him and Tom Hanks, that's what got me kind of worried about the movie. I was like, oh, okay, that's where we're going with this. But as soon as I heard him sing, I was like, yeah, this is it. This is the guy to play this role. Um, and I was looking at interviews with him, and he said he was he was having he wanted to, like, when he started out, like, figuring out the performance, he was connecting to a lot of the external stuff about Elvis, and he learned about his mom dying at the age of when he was 23, and apparently Austin Butler had also lost his mom at that exact age, and so you can see that I think he really took that to heart and really, like, oh, this is a boy who lost his main confidant, his main best friend, and and that's kind of what he brought to Elvis on stage, what he brought to Elvis in the backstage and at home. I think I also know he spent 2 years preparing for the role before they even set up a single scene, and it shows, like, it really shows. And I agree. I also like that the performance is not an impersonation. I think it works much better that way. because trying to find the humanity in Elvis is what makes this movie special to me, at least, because every other movie that talked about Elvis or featured Elvis or had an Elvis cameo, all of them were about using Elvis as an icon or using Elvis as a symbol. And this is the first movie where I feel like they've, besides documentaries and biographies and whatever, like this is the first movie that, like, even though it's not really a biopic, it still finds the humanity in Elvis, in Elvis Presley, and makes me care about him in a way that I never did outside of his music. You never really, when you're watching his movies, you don't really feel him when you're listening to songs like his version of Unchained Melody, or his version of or his gospel music, or his or even Love Me Tender and Heartbreak Hotel, like his hits, like yeah, it's I think that's where the most of the authenticity lies.
Yeah, absolutely. And Austin plays those dramatic scenes, or like the scenes with a lot of emotional weight very well too. I was kind of worried because I was like, anybody can kind of play like an energetic rock star because most of it's going to be done in post. Like it's just going to be
Right.
like cut fast, and you just got to wiggle around, and you'll probably be fine. But the emotional scenes that were played a little more straight in the camera and in the editing room hold their own. Like he absolutely kills it. The drug-addled skeleton of a man that we see in the later half of the movie and later third of the movie, you feel horrible for him because you've seen all he's gone through. You've seen all he's sacrificed. Mostly just to put a roof over his family's head that got carried away by these manipulative executives. You see the weight of all those dramatic scenes kind of unfold, and that's what was most positive for me in the second and third acts of the movie. Was kind of using the dramatic scenes prior as building blocks to care about this character so much. And I think that that's why you actually feel emotions in a Baz Luhrmann movie. They did it. They did the impossible.
Yep. Okay. The a topic of controversy that's been uh, kind of, I guess, in the air for the past 3 or 4 years is the relationship between Elvis and Black American culture. Um, so, A, did he steal Black American music? And B, how does the movie approach this question?
A kind of.
Kind of,
I
yeah.
think, yeah, I think it is a gray area because he did, at least from what I know about him, and I'm not an Elvis expert, so take with grain of salt. But he did live it, and he did like live as a part of the culture growing up, and the movie does depict that. They show his love for Beale Street. They show his like roots, like being on in the middle of nowhere, just like listening to gospel or listening to the blues, and just absorbing the culture at its purest. A lot of people knock him for stealing the songs pretty outright, or taking a chorus or a hook, but that's also kind of blues tradition is
Yeah.
doing that. They're every blues song has been done 1,000 times. Like the White Stripes would always steal Sun House songs, and that's just, they don't get shit for it. Like it's kind of a traditional thing. So I think because of the time Elvis came out, it's seen a little more nefariously than I think it is. Because I think it's more just a sign of the racist audience not giving the other artists a chance. They didn't even bother to try to listen to the other Sun Record stuff before Elvis, or any black artist before that. They just wouldn't give them the time of day. And so looking back now, you're like, oh, he just profited off of their shit. But I think it was really the audience's fault for not expanding into that world more. Um, and I think the film addresses it from a pretty authentic point of view. He did steal, and they do show that. They show other people singing his songs, and then him kind of absorbing them and taking them from there. So I think they did do it justice, at least from how I've always seen that controversy. I think they did it in an honest way. I do think they show Elvis a little more positively than he is. Like, Priscilla was 14 when they started dating, and like,
Yeah.
that's not okay. And so there are like a lot of fucked up aspects of this movie that I think they pull their punches back. But for that one, I think they did a pretty genuine depiction.
Yeah, I think also a problem with Elvis is that like even after he became big, he didn't really give like the flowers where they were due. Like he never really shouted out Little Richard. He never really shouted out Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Um, that's it's definitely a bummer on his history and on his legacy. But I think you're right. Like I think the music industry is it's kind of the nature of the music industry is stealing from black culture, and it's
Yeah,
it's not
that's
a
the longest standing tradition in music. Let's be
yeah
honest.
it's not a good thing. I'm not saying it's okay,
No,
but
absolutely.
isolating Elvis as a nefarious thief, I think is not necessarily constructive. I think looking at how the entertainment industry promotes black artists versus the way they promote white artists in the same genre, I think that's kind of the way that's a more constructive way to criticize and improve the show business and improve the way art is marketed. I mean, look at the way it continues today. I look at the way Jack Harlow is marketed versus the way Denzel Curry is marketed. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
uh,
Like, it's
it's
like a Tyler slamming the Grammys for still having an urban category, and he's like, urban is
yeah,
just the N word, like, but for the
yeah.
Grammy. And yeah, it's still crazy prevalent, crazy fucked up today.
Yeah, and I think the movie acknowledges that like you really can't talk about Elvis without talking about this thing. I don't think they answer the question directly, but I think they say they do a good job of showing like, oh, this is a problem with the whole system, because it's not just it's not just the black artists that suffer. It was the white artists that they put up. Like he became that trophy for these corporate assholes, and it hurt him just as much as it hurt them, even though we didn't see it at the time. Yeah. Any other? Oh, for the yeah, I've always wondered about the Priscilla thing, because she's kind of the main gatekeeper of his legacy, um, and I think that's why he hasn't been like canceled for it, is because she really I think in their case it really was like a genuine, even though it's not good. I think it I think she doesn't look back on it with trauma, and so I think that's maybe the reason why they didn't punch him for it, or they didn't mention his age when they mentioned her age.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not something that I can really
Yeah. I
say
don't know.
definitively.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that's why it is kind of brushed over in history and in this movie, is because she kind of controls it. She controls the narrative, I think that's okay. Like, if she looks back with like pure love, it doesn't make that relationship okay. But I think it's okay that she controls the narrative, because it is half her relationship. Like, she is the one surviving member who was a part of what happened. And so I think it's okay that she controls the narrative. I don't think it's okay that he was 24 and she was 14 at all.
Yeah,
But it's her story too.
definitely, definitely. Did you know that Riley Keough was his great granddaughter?
No,
Yeah,
no, I did not.
she's Priscilla's granddaughter. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's tight. Yeah.
Yeah, Lisa Marie.
Um, yeah. I do want to shout out the movie for actually including Sister Rosetta Tharpe because I think this is
Yes.
the first time I've seen her in any movie or like really be mentioned in anything besides like
Right.
YouTube video essays. She needs her own damn movie. The fact that like rock and roll was pretty much invented by a queer black woman is fucking fantastic. And the fact that nobody ever talks about it sucks. And so the fact that she's even in this movie in any capacity, I kind of count it as a small win.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. Like, Baz Luhrmann is a queer filmmaker from Australia, and having the success that he's had, say what you will about his filmography. I certainly will say what I will.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that he's able to use this massive platform that he has to expose younger audiences to queer art to historical queer art of the past, including Little Richard, who's also in this movie, played by a queer actor.
Yeah.
I think
Fantastically too. Like honestly, that was a fantastic scene.
so good. I was like, holy shit, that was great. Yeah. Any other notes about the film?
Not really. I mentioned having issues with the pacing, and
Oh
I think
yeah,
that is a problem with the movie. It somehow manages to feel too slow and too fast at the same time,
yeah.
which is a rare feat only Baz Luhrmann can achieve. Um, and I do think it's edited well. I think individual scenes are well edited and they fit his style without feeling too over the top, which is something I've felt about Baz a lot. But I think as a whole, it just kind of feels disjointed. I think a lot of this is because of the voiceover. Every scene will be like breakneck speed, and then he's like, "Well, I'm in this casino." And it's just weird,
Yeah.
and so there were a lot of issues there. I think I felt a little whiplashed by the pacing, um, but I don't think it's movie ruining, and I don't think general audiences who aren't analyzing every single cut in the movie
Right.
are gonna like feel it that hard. But I do think it's worth mentioning in a critical lens.
Definitely, definitely. I think also like I felt the same way, but I think it might also be because I've watched way too many biopics and way too many like I've just been watching these types of movies for as long as I've been alive. And so I'm used to the beats, I'm used to the rise and fall and stuff like that. Although Baz Luhrmann did say that he didn't want this to be a biopic, he wanted it to kind of just be like a human story and a period piece. And I think he succeeded on that front. But yeah, it's weird. Like, um, I do kind of feel like it's too long, but also like I'm also impressed at how much they got in because Elvis is such a complex life. So I don't know. I'm conflicted about that part of the movie.
Yeah, it is like it's 2.5 hours long, and for like 30 seconds to a minute and a half, they like just flash years at you because they can't fit his entire career. Because that's how, like, he died super young, but it's still a crazy expansive career.
Yeah,
So I agree. I do think they did a good job highlighting so much in the time they had. But I think if you take the shine off of the kernel a bit, you can cut down half an hour to 45 minutes.
yeah, yeah. I was kind of sad they didn't even play "Love Me Tender" or "All Shook Up." I was like, come on, man. But it's okay.
The soundtrack was good though,
Yes.
especially Austin's performances.
Yeah.
I didn't expect him to do his own singing, and I think he did a good job with it. I enjoyed all the musical numbers, and as we'll see from our best scenes coming up, a lot of them ranked highly.
Definitely, definitely. Shall we move on to those then?
Let's do it. You want to kick us off?
You can go first.
Okay. I think the best scene or sequence of the movie is actually like right near the beginning, if not like one of the first real scenes when he's a child soaking up his influences. The intercutting of like him playing in front of the colonel and absorbing the rhythm and blues and like the sensual sexual nature of it, and him as a kid in the church. I think it was cut fantastically, and it set a good foundation for where Elvis has come from. I think a lot of the times he's on stage is fantastic, especially them undermining the Christmas special. I loved that scene. Also, what's his face from Stranger Things makes an appearance, and that was cool.
Billy!
So that was a great scene. When he goes back to the Handy Club, I think it was called, and he hangs out with Sister Rosetta Tharpe and BB King and watches Little Richard perform. I loved that scene, especially. I don't know who played Little Richard, but that performance was incredible. Absolutely knocked it out of the park for a small role in the movie.
Alton Mason.
Alton Mason, you did good, and I want to see you do a whole Little Richard movie, honestly. The funeral of his mother, I think, was some of the best heartfelt scene, and it really shows that dichotomy of like exploiting Elvis at every chance people got, like making him go out for the press during his mom's funeral is kind of peak. Let's squeeze a penny out of this man. And I also think the finale of Fat Elvis singing was fantastic. I hate the way they contextualized it with the voiceover, but the finale itself was pretty good. Apart from them being like, "You killed Elvis."
Yeah. Yeah, I also loved the Unchained Melody sequence. I think that might be the only song where they used like the original vocals, but I'm not entirely sure. Uh, I do know that he did all the 50s songs, at least. So, yeah, the charity concert where he's dealing with the racist Memphis police and all that stuff. I thought that was one of my favorite scenes of the movie because it cuts to the guy who's like to the racist politician, and he's got like three Confederate flags in the background, and it's so cartoony. So like I'm laughing at Baz Luhrmann and I'm in awe of Austin Butler in that sequence.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That would definitely make my top scenes as well.
Yeah. I also love the Christmas thing, specifically when they debuted If I Can Dream in front of the big red Elvis thing. That's exactly how the video looks on YouTube if you look it up. And it's a perfect I think rendition of that song and of that moment in time. I actually do remember that one of the first videos I ever watched was of Elvis was when he came out in the leather jacket at the beginning of the special, and I watched that on YouTube, and I was like, yeah, this is the shit. This is awesome. And Austin Butler killed it. So I love those two sequences in the Christmas special, two scenes in the Christmas special sequence. And then what was the other one? I also love seeing Little Richard for the first time. I thought that scene was great. I think when they're talking about selling Elvis merchandise for the first time, I had no idea that he was the one selling the "I Hate Elvis" buttons too.
Yeah,
I
me
was like,
neither.
oh my god, that's genius! Like, I should do that for myself. Like,
Yeah, I'll wear one.
it doesn't work because we have the same name.
Yeah, it makes it kind of funny though.
um, yeah. Um, I also loved the funeral scene, um, but um, I think maybe my favorite uh, Elvis and Colonel Parker scene was um, when Parker's conflicted about when he's got the thing written down on the napkin, all debts canceled and stuff like that, and they're backstage right after the first Vegas performance, and it's like the best performance of his life so far. I think that was that was up there for me too, just because it was the most interesting dramatic moment I think between the two of them. Um, and what else? Oh, um, when he goes back into the airplane after saying goodbye to Priscilla for the final time. I thought that was really sad because I think he in the movie he's choosing to die because it's easier than being what they made him. And I was like, oh shit, that sucks. That's hard, man. That sucks. Yeah, those are all great scenes to me.
Yeah, I oh, there it goes.
Blessings.
Thank you. I also felt that scene was incredibly emotionally powerful, but I could not help but giggle when he mouthed "I will always love you" as they did the string rendition of that melody. Besides that, great dramatic scene, super powerful. That one aspect kind of just killed it for me, though.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just the Bazmataz, man.
Yeah, you can't. He just can't help himself. I swear.
See, that's what he calls it. Like that's what he calls it, Bazmataz.
I mean, I would too.
I was listening to that interview, and he knows exactly. Like he would agree with you. He was like, yeah, I can't change what kind of filmmaker I am. Like, yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Alrighty, folks. Well, Elvis is still in theaters. You probably can't see it in a premium format now that Minions is out, but try to find it with the loudest speakers that you can, because it's a very loud movie and it should be played loud. It's also going to be on HBO Max in 30-ish days, so catch it on there as well if you can't watch it in theaters. Yeah. Groovy. See you next week. We love you. Goodbye.